There is a small, fan-shaped leaf growing in the damp, shaded corners of gardens across Asia that has quietly outlived empires. Its name is Gotu Kola, and for generations, it has carried a very specific reputation: strong, steady legs, and circulation that keeps flowing well into old age. In Sri Lanka, elephants are said to graze on it, and elephants live a remarkably long time. Today, we look at why this humble garden herb earned that reputation, and how to grow it yourself. Gotu Kola's botanical name is Centella asiatica, a low, creeping plant in the carrot family, easy to recognize by its small, round, fan-shaped leaves that spread along the ground on thin, wiry stems. It grows naturally in the marshy, shaded margins of streams and rice paddies across South and Southeast Asia, and it has been known by many names along the way: Indian pennywort, Asiatic pennywort, and in Ayurvedic tradition, Mandukaparni, meaning frog leaf, for the shape those little leaves take on. What makes Gotu Kola worth growing isn't folklore alone. The plant contains a group of compounds called triterpenoid saponins, most notably asiaticoside, madecassoside, asiatic acid, and madacassic acid, together sometimes referred to as centelloids. These compounds have been studied for their role in supporting the body's own collagen production, the structural protein that keeps skin, blood vessel walls, and connective tissue firm and elastic. That matters most in the legs. Over the years, gravity works against the veins that carry blood back up toward the heart. When the walls of those veins lose some of their strength, blood can pool, legs can feel heavy, tired, or swollen by the end of the day, and visible veins can start to appear. Traditional herbalists observed, generation after generation, the Gotu Kola seemed to ease exactly that kind of heaviness, and modern research has offered a plausible explanation. The centelloids in the plant appear to support the tone and integrity of vein walls, encouraging healthier microcirculation in the lower legs. Some traditional preparations were even used specifically for the visible signs of that struggle: the mild swelling around the ankles by evening, the faint bluish veins that become more visible with age. Herbalists did not claim to erase these signs entirely. They simply noted, across generations of use, that legs treated with Gotu Kola over time tended to feel lighter, and that the skin over those veins tended to look calmer. This is also why Gotu Kola shows up again and again in traditional approaches to wound healing and skin recovery. The same collagen-supporting action that helps vein walls appears to help skin knit itself back together after a cut, a scrape, or a scar. It is not framed as an instant fix in any tradition that uses it seriously. It is framed as something you support the body with, steadily, over time. If you want to keep learning which plants can support your health, subscribe. There's a new one every week. Long before laboratories confirmed anything about triterpenoids, Gotu Kola already held a serious place in traditional medicine. In Ayurvedic texts from India, some more than 2,000 years old, it appears among the rasayana herbs, plants believed to support vitality and slow the effects of aging on the body. Healers prescribed it for the skin, for mental clarity, and for what we would now describe as circulatory strength in the legs. Some of the earliest surviving Ayurvedic medical texts, including the Sushruta Samhita, name Gotu Kola specifically among the plants used to support the skin and the body's lower extremities, a detail that lines up remarkably well with how the plant is still used today. It is worth noting that Gotu Kola is sometimes confused with another plant called Brahmi, Bacopa monieri, since both carry that name in parts of India. They are different plants with different uses, and the one we are talking about today, the one tied to legs and circulation, is Centella asiatica. In traditional Chinese herbal practice, Gotu Kola earned the nickname the grass of long life, tied to a persistent legend surrounding an herbalist said to have lived well over 100 years, who reportedly drank a tea made from it daily. Whether every detail of that story holds up to scrutiny is beside the point. The reputation stuck, and it stuck because it was tied to old age lived well, on legs that still carried a person through their days. And then there is Sri Lanka, where the plant grows wild along the edges of wetlands, and where a much-repeated piece of folk wisdom points to the elephants that graze on it. Elephants are among the longest-living land animals on Earth, and for generations, that observation has been offered as a kind of natural proof. If it works for legs that large, carrying that much weight for that many decades, perhaps there is something to it. Across much of Southeast Asia, Gotu Kola never left the kitchen either. In Vietnam, Thailand, and Sri Lanka, the fresh leaves are still eaten raw in salads or blended into a cooling drink, treated as an everyday leafy green as much as a medicinal one. That everyday familiarity is part of why it survived so many generations of use. It was never treated as rare or exotic. It was simply grown, picked, and used the way you might use mint or parsley. Traditionally, Gotu Kola is prepared most simply as a tea. Dried leaves, roughly 1 to 2 teaspoons per cup, are steeped in hot water for about 10 minutes, then strained. Some herbalists prefer a cooler infusion, letting the leaves sit in room temperature water overnight to preserve more of the delicate compounds. The taste is mild, slightly bitter and vegetal, closer to a garden green than a spice. For the skin, the plant is prepared differently. Fresh leaves are crushed into a paste, sometimes combined with a small amount of oil, and applied directly to minor cuts, scrapes, or areas of dry, irritated skin. This topical use is where Gotu Kola's reputation for wound support is most visible, and it is one of the gentlest ways to work with the plant. A tincture, made by steeping the leaves in alcohol over several weeks, is the more concentrated traditional preparation, used in smaller measured doses rather than by the cupful. As with most herbs used for internal, ongoing support, tradition favors moderation over continuous daily use. Many herbal practitioners suggest using Gotu Kola for a stretch of several weeks, then pausing before beginning again, rather than taking it without interruption for months at a time. In more recent herbal practice, standardized extracts and capsules have also become common, offering a more measured, consistent dose than a home-brewed tea. Many people who use Gotu Kola specifically for tired, heavy legs also pair it with simple habits that support the same goal. Elevating the legs at the end of the day, taking short walks to keep blood moving, and avoiding long stretches of standing still. The herb was never meant to work alone. Traditional use always paired it with basic care for the body it was supporting. A few cautions are worth taking seriously. Gotu Kola is not recommended during pregnancy. People with liver conditions, or those taking sedative medications, should speak with a healthcare provider before using it, since traditional sources note possible interactions. And as with any new plant applied to the skin, a small patch test is simply good sense before wider use. None of this is meant to alarm you. It is simply the kind of care that traditional herbalists themselves practiced, treating a plant this useful with the respect it deserves. This is only the first seed of what this garden holds. Subscribe and grow with us. If you want to grow Gotu Kola yourself, the first thing to understand is that it is a plant of damp, shaded ground, not a typical sun-loving garden herb. In the wild, it spreads along stream banks and the shallow edges of rice paddies, so your garden bed should imitate that. Consistently moist soil, rich in organic matter, with some shade for at least part of the day. A spot that gets filtered morning light and afternoon shade suits it well. Full, harsh sun through the hottest part of the day tends to scorch the small leaves. Gotu Kola grows best outdoors in warm, humid climates, roughly zones 9 through 11, where it can be treated as a low-growing, spreading ground cover. In cooler climates, it adapts easily to container growing, kept on a porch or a partially shaded windowsill, as long as the soil never fully dries out. A shallow, wide container suits its creeping habit better than a deep pot. The easiest way to start new plants is by division. Established Gotu Kola spreads through thin runners, called stolons, that root themselves at each leaf node as they creep along the soil. Snip a rooted section with a few leaves attached and plant it directly into moist soil, spacing new starts about 15 to 20 centimeters apart. Given the right conditions, those runners will fill in the space between plants within a few months, forming a dense, low mat of foliage. Watering is the single most important habit here. The soil should stay evenly moist, never bone dry, and never left standing in stagnant water for long stretches. A light mulch around the base helps hold that moisture during warmer weeks. Beyond that, Gotu Kola asks for very little. An occasional light feeding with a balanced, diluted fertilizer during the growing season is enough. Watch for slugs and snails, which are drawn to the same damp conditions the plant thrives in, and remove them by hand if they appear. In climates with a real winter, Gotu Kola grown outdoors will usually die back once the cold arrives. If it is planted directly in the ground in a borderline climate, A thick layer of mulch over the root area can help it survive and return in spring. Gardeners in colder regions often skip that risk entirely and simply bring a container plant indoors before the first frost, setting it near a bright but indirect window until the weather warms again. Every year or two, a container planting benefits from being divided and repotted into fresh soil, which keeps the roots from becoming crowded and keeps new growth vigorous. Harvesting is simple and forgiving. Once the plant is established, usually after about 2 to 3 months, you can begin snipping the outer, older leaves, always leaving the center growth intact so the plant keeps producing. Taking no more than about a third of the leaves at any one time keeps the planting healthy and productive for years, rather than treating it as a one-time harvest. So that is Gotu Kola, a small, unassuming leaf that traditional healers across Asia trusted to keep legs strong and circulation flowing. Generation after generation, we looked at what it is. A low, creeping member of the carrot family. We looked at why it earned that trust. The triterpenoid compounds that appear to support collagen and vein strength. We traced its history through Ayurveda, through traditional Chinese herbal practice, and through the wetlands of Sri Lanka, where the elephants still graze. We covered how it has traditionally been prepared, as a tea, a topical paste, or a tincture, always with moderation in mind. And now you know how to grow it yourself, in damp shade, patient, and low to the ground. Plants like this one are a reminder that some of the oldest solutions are still growing quietly in the corner of a garden, waiting to be noticed.